it won't stop raining. So I'm impatiently waiting for spring to come. I keep checking my daffodil pots, seeing if those first shoots are just starting to poke through. But we've still got a while yet. So as there's not that much to do in the garden at the moment, I thought I'd give you a little tour of my greenhouse. We found this one on Facebook. Someone didn't want it anymore, so it was going quite cheap. We took it down and put it back up ourselves, replaced a couple of panes, and it fits perfectly into this little space on the patio we had. This is my little thermostat. It's connected to the internet. I've also got this little 250 watt heater. It's also connected to the internet. They work together to keep the frost off when it's cold out. When it's nice, which it hasn't been in a while, I like to open the doors up and try and get the air circulating around a bit. I've also insulated it with this bubble wrap. It's got these lovely big bubbles which are much better for keeping the heat in, and I think it's also UV stabilised or UV resistant or something like that, which is what you want on your greenhouse. Now let's have a look at the plants, starting with my Echiums. I sowed these from seed last summer. They're biennials, which means they won't flower in the first year. You have to overwinter them, and then in the second year, once the risk of frost has passed, then they should create these impressive big tall spires with these gorgeous blue flowers that the bees love. I'm not sure mine are gonna be quite to the same effect, but gardening's all about having a go, so I'm looking forward to see what happens. The one at the back is looking a little bit healthier than this one at the front. Next we have this Gladiolus Murielae, also known as an Acidanthera. I bought this towards the end of summer from a garden I visited. They have these lovely arching white scented flowers, but they aren't fully hardy. It was towards the end of summer I got them, so I never really planted them in the garden. So I've just popped them in the greenhouse in the pot that they came in. If you're not in a mild area, you do want to lift the corms and dry them out and store them over winter, or some people will just start afresh with new ones every year. At the back here, this is an ornamental ginger, Hedychium. I'm not sure which type it is. I dug it up from a friend's garden just before winter, so I'm looking forward to seeing it make a nice exotic display in my garden next year. Some Gazanias from last year. I wasn't sure if they'd make it over winter, but I had room in my greenhouse, so I thought I would just see. I quite like Gazanias. I think they look really pretty when they're flowering. The foliage dies back, so I've cut them back. You don't want dead foliage hanging around in your greenhouse. Maybe a couple will make it for next year. Here we have my cannas. I got these from my mum. I'm fairly sure this is Canna Tropicanna with this lovely colourful foliage. It did very well last year out at the front of the house. I let a light frost kill off the foliage a bit before I cut them right back and lifted them up. I'd run out of room in my greenhouse at this point, so I just plonked them on this little potting tray here and covered the roots with compost. But it's actually not a bad spot for them. The compost is quite dry, so it should help by absorbing a bit of moisture from around the roots and stopping them from rotting. My mum doesn't actually lift them. She covers them in straw and pins it down with a bit of chicken wire, which has worked quite well for her so far, but I'm a bit further north than she is now, so I didn't want to risk it, and I'm also planning on putting them in a different spot next year. This is Agastache Apricot Sprite, some seeds I sowed last year, planning to add them to the garden somewhere later in the year, but they're not really winter hardy. This is a Campsis I bought to grow in a sunny corner on the wall I've got at the back of the garden. It's right next to the house, so it's quite well sheltered. It's supposed to be reasonably hardy, but as it's a quite new plant and it's not well established yet, we had some cold nights forecast. It got down to -7, and the night before I kind of panicked and quickly dug it up and put it in here. I think it'll be fine when it's a bit better established where it is. Here are some seeds I sowed last year. Hopefully I'll be able to show you a bit more of them later in the year as they grow and I find places for them in the garden. Down here in the corner are some plants I grew in baskets around the front of the house last year. They're called Lotus Firevine. I grew them from seed a couple of years ago and overwintered them, so they don't flower in the first year. The next year I put 3 each in a basket, and they flower beautifully and trail down the side of the baskets. They have these tropical looking orangey red flowers and this lovely feathery silvery foliage. It's something a bit different that I wanted to try, but they didn't entirely fill the baskets, and I thought maybe if I wait another year, maybe there'll be even more flowers. So I just chopped them back and put them in here. I'll hang them out as soon as it's warm enough and see what they do. At the front here we have a couple of Pelargoniums. They seem to be doing okay. These have already been overwintered a previous year by a friend who gave them to me last summer. I've removed the dead foliage as it's died with the cold temperatures. Dead foliage in a damp, cold greenhouse will create fungus issues, so you want to get rid of it. What I really should have done was trim it down and cut all the foliage off before I put them in here. They will need a trim back in the spring before they start growing again to give the plant a nice strong bushy shape for the new season. I'm also protecting these terracotta pots just as much as the plants in them. I bought them quite cheap and I'm not sure how frost hardy they are. Similar sort of situation with the fuchsia here. I think this one is Winston Churchill. It will also need a trim back and tidy up in the spring. So I think that's it. Thank you for watching the tour of my greenhouse and what I'm keeping in here. And here's a quick overview of all the plants.